You can do Hey Ray, how's it going?
What's up?
Just running the Zoom today. Erica's away.
Yeah, I thought she was gone.
So I saw you in a waiting room. I thought that everybody just got admitted automatically, but I'll try to watch this and let people in as they log on.
Yeah, I think Drew's gonna do it. It's his first meeting, and then yeah, usually police and fire shot. So you haven't done the Zoom yet? You haven't done one Zoom, right? Or ran it?
Hosting, I've done it through our two fairgrounds accounts to run their Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting, but that's the only one I've done. I am much more proficient with Teams than I am with Zoom.
Yeah.
Not that there's a huge difference between the two, but there are some differences.
Yeah.
If we went to like panelists and trying to keep everybody separated, like I'm sure I would be very clumsy and just letting people into the meeting and promoting them and unpromoting them.
Oh yeah.
I just haven't done that. I'm sure it's easy.
I don't know if my camera. There we go. I always forget to do that.
Are you here at 2FG or are you at DPW?
What's that?
Are you at 2FG or DPW?
No, I'm out DPW. I'm in the foreman's office today.
Ah,
Yeah. I figured it's easier doing it out here. I got the camera out here from last time. So
do you have a computer with a camera here in your shop?
yeah, well, this is the same camera. I just brought it from there. I just
Oh,
hooked it here. It's the same
you
camera.
just shuttle it back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not down in my office that often anymore.
No?
No, no.
Why
I'm still
not?
doing signs when I can. It's just I'm a foreman too, so I got to do all the stuff out here. Run the crews. Like today, Nikki's on vacation, and
Mhm.
so I'm running the crews now for a week. So I gotta have. You'll see me mute if I see me on my phone. That's what I'm doing, dealing with the crew. So
Trying to put out a fire.
yeah, yep, another one. So far, it's been quiet today, but I'm sure as soon as the meeting starts, it'll start firing off.
Well,
Are they going to replace Jack's position? You think?
uh, I don't know. I don't know. And that's been a little while now, right? I'm waiting. That wasn't last week. Um,
Yeah, I didn't know. I haven't heard anything, and I didn't know if like I didn't even know if somebody had already been. It's just the last meeting. I didn't see anybody on there. I thought it was different. So
yeah, I'm not sure. Do you have somebody in mind who could, those are big shoes to fill?
no, I know. That's what I was just curious. I was just curious. I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, I would assume they don't. They have to do that out. Doesn't the town put that out when they put out all their committee vacancies and stuff?
I think that's at Libby's pleasure. I think she appoints this
Okay.
this group,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to remember how this was all structured once upon a time, and I think that she appoints it, not necessarily open to, well, it's just at large, I guess, right? It's Art and Jack's positions were the at large. Everybody else was, Mickey was Commissioner of Disability, and
Yep.
the rest of us were by virtue of our different departments.
Oh. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I knew he was. He had been on it for years.
yeah. Well, I'm sure there might be a little bit of a list of people that might want to get on this committee.
Yeah, there might be. Yeah, I can think of a few.
Uh,
Oh, nobody else has popped in yet, huh?
uh, now that you say that,
I'll mute mine. I usually keep mine muted anyway unless I'm asked a question. So, and
no, that
if Drew's here, he'll be the voter. He'll probably be the vote unless he wants me to be. That's my guess. This will be his first meeting, so
no, it's fantastic. I'm sure we'll ask you to. like help out if there's a question.
Yeah.
That we're
More
struggling with.
advisory than anything. As long as if the boss is here, I'm advisory. If not,
Yeah,
I can do the vote. So
understood.
It's better. Ah.
Mike, I see you more than I see my children.
Well, I don't think it's that often, is it?
Yeah, but they're away.
Oh. There you go. Okay. Mhm.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning, welcome everybody. Looks like we have a quorum and it's 10:30, so I think we'll get started. Welcome to the August 17th, 2023 meeting of the Nantucket Traffic Safety Work Group. We're meeting remotely per Zoom per the Governor's Acts of 2023. The meeting is being both audio and video recorded. Please use care not to screen share your computer or anything may be captured by the recording. The meeting will be broadcast on town's YouTube at a later date. Please be sure to speak through the chair and identify yourself. And all votes of this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. With that, we'll move to the first order of business, which is public comment for items that are not otherwise on the agenda. Please feel free to speak up, or if you have your camera on, wave your hand and we could recognize you. Not seeing any. So we'll move on to the first official business, which is to review the request for no parking in front of 8 Nantucket Ave, which had been continued from the last meeting. Is there anybody on to speak on that matter? I'm not seeing any. Mr. Burns, you had suggested that this be continued. Did you have anything further you'd like to add on this?
Yes, I went and looked at the area. I'm sure you all did as well, and I would make a motion to approve the yellow line, a 6-foot yellow line in front of the stoop there. It's about 25 feet away from the driveway, so plenty of space for parking space between that yellow line and the yellow line that's in front of the driveway. So I'd make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded, hearing no further discussion. Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Mr. Rowland,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you. Next, we'll review a request for a slower speed limit on Tom Nevers Road. I see that we have Mr. Ringer on, and I'd be happy to turn the floor over to you if you would like, and then we can have a further discussion. You're muted. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we had our annual meeting 2 weekends ago, and Bob Cole brought up the point that the speed on Tom Nevers Road, especially on the weekends, being 40 miles an hour, is often exceeded. And in an absence of a sidewalk or a bike lane, the feeling was if we could ask the town to lower the speed limit to 35, that would be a safer way of dealing with the increased traffic on Tom Nevers Road. And that was the reason for the request I made to Erica.
Thank you. Mr. Cole, I see you have your hand up. Oh. You're muted though.
Hey, there we go.
All right, the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, I've learned a lot of different things today. Ring cameras, Zoom meetings. I want to thank you for spending time about at least listening about this. There's a couple reasons we need to drop the speed limit. There's going to be a bike path in the near future. Hopefully that it won't be that long, but that's another reason that I'm suggesting that we go from 35 all the way down to 30 at Old Tom Nevers Road. As you may know, we had a death on this road 2 summers ago. The corners are very dangerous and the traffic has been unbelievably grown in the past 20 years. With the park being developed, this is time to at least use this opportunity to, at least as an enforcement tool, to look at the speed limit down here, and that's basically it. It's my fault that I didn't see the meeting posted August 11th. That's my mistake, but there's an awful lot of support for this, considering the 3 people that showed up today only learned about it this morning. But if that's a problem about the support, I suggest we put this meeting off, and I can probably get 25, 30 other people to contact you all for their support for this article. I just want to thank you and hope you do the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. I don't know that it's a numbers, game or situation in terms of the recommendation, but we appreciate that input. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? Ms. Coran?
Hi, yes, we live at 90 Tom Nevers. And it's a little tricky getting out the driveway and having cars zipping by so fast. So yeah, I would go for a lower speed limit. I think it's safer all around between the bicyclists, the runners, the walkers, the little roads coming out on the side with the the alphabet streets. Yeah, I think a lower speed limit would be much safer here.
So if I could just sort of wrap it up, I think what we're saying is that as you come off of Milestone where the speed limit is 45 and you enter onto Tom Nevers, the long straightaway, we'd like it dropped to 35. And then when we get to Tom Nevers Road and the curve goes around to the right, we'd like it dropped to 30 from there to the park.
Understood.
Okay.
Anyone else that wants to speak on this before the work group deliberates the matter? Mr. Cole, you can lower your virtual hand if you want, unless you want me to recognize you
Well,
again.
see, look at all the things I've learned today.
All right, thank you. I just want to make sure that if you're trying to get my
Whatever.
attention, you can get it. Thank you.
I
Mr.
did.
Burns, do you have any thoughts on what the process would be? And then Chief Pittman, and certainly welcome your input as well.
Well, that's exactly where I would go. I'd just go to police and say that what's been the procedure recently on this. You know, we've done like an 85 percentile survey in areas like this, and then we'd take a look at the data to see if it warrants an adjustment in the speed limit.
Okay. Well, first of all, right now, the only enforceable speed limit on that road is 40 miles per hour. It doesn't qualify as a thickly settled neighborhood. So 25 mile an hour or 30 mile an hour wouldn't be appropriate. However, it's possible that around the curve towards the park, that might, it's been a while since I've been out there in that particular part, but looking at driveways and stuff, but then if it did, the only way we could drop it down to 35 would be we'd have to have an engineering study, and then we'd have to petition or notify the Department of Transportation and the Registry of Motor Vehicles that we're intending to do that. And then at that point, if it's approved, then it can be posted 35 and then it can be enforceable. If the town just puts a 35 mile an hour speed limit sign up because this committee wants to, or the town manager agrees, that's an unenforceable speed limit, and you'd probably never see a police radar car out there again at that point, because we can't enforce things that are illegally posted. That's why you saw over the last few years many changes on many roads that were previously 35 mile an hour, because we couldn't find any evidence that those roads had ever had an engineering study done to support a lower speed limit rather than the statutory speed limits. And, it was costing us in court. So, I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just not an overnight project, and it does involve having to hire an engineer to perform a study. And they look at things like the curves, the bank of the angle, the pedestrian traffic, things like that in their study to make their determination. So I support whatever we want to do, as long as we get an engineering study to do it.
Thank you. It's very helpful. If I may, back to you, Mr. Ringer, is that something that perhaps the association would be willing to undertake and bring back? It might be the best way to, affect the change you're hoping for, would be to independently and perhaps in consultation, once you engage somebody with NPD, to be sure that it follows, what would be needed, and then bring it back to us, essentially giving the town the tools that it would need to make that change.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is ask two questions. One, do we have any idea what something like this would cost?
No, you'd have to investigate that.
Okay, and who would I investigate that through?
I would say probably, some online research. I don't believe there's anybody on island that I'm aware of that would, perform that, but there are quite a few traffic engineers in Massachusetts that, could do something like that for you.
Okay, I can certainly look into that. What I'd like to suggest, though, in the interim, I would like to request that the town does put up non-enforceable signs at 35 on Tom Nevers Road on the straightaway, perhaps 2, 3, and then at the corner going into the park, drop it down to 30 with our complete knowledge that it is unenforceable as we're going through the engineering process, which I assume is going to not be something that's going to be done quickly. Could we
Sure,
have-
that's fine for you to make that request. I could tell you that's not something I will support. But I'll leave it up to a recommendation from the you know, the committee. Understand what you're hoping to affect, but I'm more concerned with undermining essentially the authority of the police department and their ability to you know, have patrols on that road. So I just want you to understand that if it comes to a vote, everybody's free to offer their own opinion on that, but that would be my basis for not supporting that request.
Right. I think though that what Chief Pittman was saying was that they wouldn't be, it's not that there'd be no police ever on the road, it's just that there would be no radar on the road enforcing it.
Well, I'll defer to Chief Pittman and then, but I think that there's some concern with, you know, undermining authority. But I'll certainly defer to the chief. I say you had your hand up.
No, it affects a lot more than what you think. Let me give you, for instance. You call up because somebody's breaking into your house in the middle of the night. And you call the police. We race out there. And on the way there, coming down Tom Nevers Road, we see a car going the other direction, going 55 mile an hour. And or let's say 45 mile an hour, well, 55 mile an hour. Okay, there's a good chance that whoever's in that car is probably the one that was trying to break into your house. And we pull a traffic stop on them. We have to have a traffic violation in order to do that. We can't just say, oh, they were probably the ones that are breaking into the house, because we have no idea if that was it. But they were speeding, so we can conduct an investigatory stop based on the pretense of they were speeding. But it's an illegal stop now, and all evidence gathered as a result of that ties them into any crime is useless in court. So we don't advocate putting any kind of signs up that aren't legal. That's kind of a stretch explanation, but it is a valid explanation. Now, what we can do out there, and the curve would be a good example, is you can install a yellow cautionary sign that says curve and an advisory speed of 30 or something on the curve sign. You know, but that's a non-enforceable sign. That's just a warning sign that, hey, the safe speed for this curve is 30 mile an hour. That's something the town could do without creating any legal issues. We've actually done that on Matticat Road in several places. Because that used to be a hodgepodge of speed limits on Matticat Road, and we fixed it, making it all 40, except for there's certain areas where 40 is clearly a little bit fast for a lot of people. So we put advisory signs on some of those curves and stuff. That's the proper way to deal with it in the interim, and then do the engineering study if you think a more permanent solution is needed.
It sounds like a great idea, great solution. So if we could do that on the advisory sign, great. And in the meantime, I'll try to find out how to go about getting the engineering to make that work. And Arthur, just help me understand. Once I get an engineer, say, lined up, who do I work with at the town to make this happen? Or do they work independently and then I give you the results?
I would suggest, and he's on the call, so don't let me speak for you, but Mr. Burns, is that
Okay.
something that you could be a liaison with them for? Would that fall into something you could do? I don't want to assign you a task. I just didn't know if that would be it would seem that they would contact you at least.
Yeah, there could be some coordination there. I mean, you hate to burden the local neighborhood with having to investigate this. Generally, we'd put this into a queue. You'd raise it as an issue. We'd put it into a queue as something to be evaluated in the future, because we do have other things that we're investigating right now. But if you wanted to just speed up the process by doing that, then that's fine. And then if you had somebody that you want to consult with me, and I'm happy to have some dialogue and coordination, and then bring their work to this group to
Great.
review any type of data or recommendations they would have.
Very good. Okay, will do.
Thank you. Mr. Cole, we're gonna wrap it up here, but go ahead. Okay, I see the hand, but you're still muted. So it sounds like there is support to put in advisory signs at the curve. Does anybody have any further discussion or concerns with doing so? It
I'd
sounds
make a
like that-
motion for the advisory, 30-mile-an-hour advisory signs on the curve at the intersection of Old Tom Nevers Road and Tom Nevers Road.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Rowland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you.
Right.
Next, we have to review a request for an accessible parking space across from 21 Lily Street. And is there anybody here to speak on this matter? I'm not seeing any, so I will run through it quickly. We received the request for an additional space. We had, I think, carried this forward to this meeting and requested review by the Commission on Disability. Mr. Rowland, did you have anything you wanted to add? We have the email in the packet.
Yeah, I looked at this when it came through earlier, and there it is, that they have, this house has its own parking driveway parking space, and it could potentially even hold 2 cars. So it didn't seem like there was a real need to burden the street with a handicap space when they have their own right there. So it's probably not something that representing the Commission on Disability, that's something that I would naturally support.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything further? Is there a motion, or we simply take no action?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to take no action.
So the motion to take no action, is there a second?
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Mr. Rowland,
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. Review request for no parking along the Center Street along the side of 14 Broadway. Is there anyone from the public or to represent this application? Seeing and hearing none, we can work through this. The request was in Sconset. Do you want to, is it only that email, Mr. Burns? Okay. Not sure that it was quite clear. From a map perspective, exactly where to put this. Is this something that we want to ask for more information for a proposed specific location? I'm not sure. Does anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask, just confess that I didn't have a chance to go to the site and look at the
Yeah.
issue, so I'm a little unaware of what's being asked for and what the issue is. So if you want to hold this over for a month, if there's nobody here to defend the request, perhaps we just hold it over a month.
Right, let's hold, is that fine with everybody? Okay, so by unanimous consent, we will continue this matter to the next meeting. And that takes us on to review of a request for a yellow line in front of 8 North Mill Street. And this was submitted by Mr. Cargman. Is there anybody on the meeting that would like to speak to this matter? Okay, hearing none. So we received the photos that you see, and they have asked they can't get at their front door, is what this saying here. I think same thing. My sense is that we would need some kind of a map or a plan to understand where the parking is and where we would be removing it from. Does anybody want to take action on this or respond to the applicant to provide more information?
Yeah, Art, I'm looking at this on the Google Street View.
Yeah.
And their front stoop is really quite close to the corner of North Mill and Mill. It's hard to say exactly, but maybe only about 10 or 15 feet away from the corner. I'm sure that's exactly the spot that they're looking to, block off the parking. So I didn't have a problem with this. The steps are right on the street, as you can see right there in your picture. It seems like a reasonable request to me, so.
Yeah, the question I would ask is the steps on town property.
Yeah, I was sort of wondering that as well, given the fence line. I feel like that's why I sort of feel like we need more information to understand exactly where this would be going and what the impacts would be. I suppose if it's helpful, I'm trying to bring it up as well. I could share the Google satellite. But again, we've had a lot of discussion over the years in this neighborhood, in this area. I have it ready, Mr. Burns, not to just interrupt, but I can.
Sure.
So we're right here, I believe. And the street view would be, I don't know if we can get, so here we are right here. So that's what Mr. Rowland is suggesting. I think that we're near this corner, so the yellow line would go like here. But again, I think you're greatly impacting, you'd be coming to the select board to justify the proposed removal of a parking space. And my feeling, where it may be something we support, but that burden of proof should be on the applicant to provide that same level of information that the select board is going to want to see, which would be, I think, some more information or a map, proposed yellow line, location, as opposed to just simply, I think that there would have to be a better understanding. Now, maybe if other members feel like this picture here would be enough to suggest that there be a yellow line from there to there, or the other piece of this is, does it fall under the existing regulation within intersection of streets that might be something we could look at.
I'm thinking that might be what it is, but I don't know for sure from that picture. It's not definitive enough for making a judgment, but if we had a measurement on that, that might be helpful.
Art, if you go up Mill Street and turn around and look back at that intersection, yeah, you'll see it's a little bit better of a picture.
Gotcha. So right here to here, so we could suggest the yellow line within 10 feet of the intersection, simply not as removing parking, but under the existing traffic rules and regulations, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might make sense. And then that's going to just have to be however far that ends up, it ends up.
It won't cover their stoop.
So I guess we're back to needing more information.
Yeah, I mean, so I can't remember what the distance is, 15 or 20 feet from the apex of the intersection. So it might not cover the stew, but it might get it up, or we adding a little more might be able to get to the step, but what impact does it have beyond there? Does that take what was 3 spaces, making it now only 2, or does it have no impact? It may not have any impact. Because I think we need to have, some measurements to figure that out.
Right. Why don't we refer this back to the applicant and ask them to give us a plan with dimensions and that shows us the edge of the road and, where it is that they'd like that to go.
Yeah.
Is that amenable to everybody? And we'll hold it.
And I'd
over.
also like to know beyond there to the next.
Right, to the next parking.
Right.
Yep. Okay, if everyone agrees, then by unanimous consent, we will hold this over to the next meeting and request some additional information from the applicant. And I'll give the screen back. And with that, we'll review a request to widen Easton Street between North Beach Street and the Nantucket Hotel to alleviate traffic. Is there anybody on the meeting to speak to this application for Mr. McKechnie? Not seeing any. Just a little project, I guess. I mean, you have the land bank that's doing a whole bunch of work on the corner there. I can just tell you that they've been in front of the Conservation Commission and received approval. They've got a big project for that whole corner. But I think within the road layout, I mean, that's and I thought I heard that tree maybe was nearing the end, or did it come down? Is that the one that actually already came down? Mr. Sylvia?
Where's this?
You're talking about the one that actually intruded into the road. down
Yeah,
there.
the one that really bumped
One-
way out.
Yeah, we had to take one out, but there's still another one there.
There is, yeah. I don't know about, well, I'll open it up for work group discussion, but this is a pretty, high level, very large type of an undertaking for infrastructure, I think, to take on a road widening like this. Mr. Burns, I see you.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off making a recommendation to remove parking because I think that's probably the solution for this without a lot of huge
Right.
investment, but is very impactful to the parking supply. But
Right.
well, this isn't the first time we've discussed this, but I would probably
Right.
go to our previous recommendation for parking removal.
Yeah, and I think that the same people that make the recommendations for widening the road may have bigger concerns with removal
Yeah.
of parking.
Yeah.
My sense on this would be to take no action, but I would open it up for the work group.
I'll make a motion, take no action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? So Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Rowland,
Aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
and Chair votes aye. We have a request to explore making Gardner Street one way. Up one.
This is Jeremy Bloomer. I live at 15 Gardner Street. And I asked to get put on the agenda. My neighbors have asked me to see how we might be able to get the town to change Gardner Street to one way. And there are probably 4 major reasons for it. The first is safety. Everybody on this street has stories of almost being wiped out by the cars. And the second one is that the sidewalks are getting totally destroyed. And so de facto, the sidewalks are becoming the road. The road itself is being damaged every year in the same spot with massive potholes. That is just showing that there's excessive wear and tear. And then finally, we are of a belief that the town has potential liability because the two-way is so using the sidewalks as the roads. And so the overriding concern, though, is for the safety issue. And so we think it should be one way from Liberty aimed the traffic going to the Civil War Monument. And the issues of, well, what does the traffic do? And I think there are two ways that traffic, let's say, coming out of Pleasant Street from Mid-Island, they can either make a right-hand turn instead of a left-hand turn and go down to Winter Street and then come up Liberty and then get out to the other side of the island. Or they could make a left on Main Street and continue up to New Lane and then make a right. But the massive amounts of construction commercial vehicles is really causing this issue. And so I was asked to come and talk with you guys and see what is it that we need to do in order to hopefully make this one way.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomer. I know we've had this discussion in the past. To me, it seems a little bit, again, larger scale than just this, committee, more of a global transportation and perhaps NPDC type of a project. But Mr. Burns, did you have any thoughts on how you might go about a study or determining a recommendation to support such a change?
Yeah, I think we did this a number of years ago. I looked at this corridor, and again, I'm gonna settle on our last recommendation that we made for this, and that's a one-way with bike accommodations. I think we had a bike lane going out of
Yep.
and a bike lane going into town, and then a bike route basically share the road with the traffic flow going out of town. When I say out of town, it's going towards the Civil War Monument. That was reviewed by the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee and was recommended as a better solution for sharing the corridor amongst all the different users. And that's where I would settle on this. And I can go dig that information up if you'd like to revisit it next month.
Yeah,
Sure.
I would. By the way, do you know when all that review was? Because I've lived here 20 years and I'm not aware of that ever happening. I know that many of my neighbors have been asking me for quite a bit of time to lead a charge on this. And so I finally decided to do that.
4 or 5 years ago.
I want to
Yep.
say at least 5.
Yeah, I mean, I was part of it. We were, a lot of us here were part of that. We'll just have to go back and look to see what we can dig up, and we can keep it on the agenda. And then revisit it, I would say, and we could send you that information. And I can't remember honestly where it landed. A lot of times, Mr. Bloomer, if it's helpful, we are an advisory group to the town manager. So, it ultimately falls with town administration beyond our recommendation.
Should I? Okay, so, all right.
Let us do the research and see what we come up with and get it back to you. I mean, something like this wasn't going to happen, sort of a stroke of the pen.
Yeah, no, I want to start the process.
Yep, I think you've done that. And we appreciate it, and we will look into it, and then we could let you know what we find, and we can certainly for our next meeting review that information and go from there.
Okay, and is there anything you'd like me to do in the interim?
I don't think in the interim there's much to do beyond us digging up what we had, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, I'll leave you with one last thought. Pre-pandemic, which is 4 or 5 years ago, people were talking about this in our neighborhood. And then, of course, during the pandemic, things calmed down a little bit. But this summer has been dramatically different. And the safety issue is just massive.
Understood.
Yep. Okay. And the bike path idea you mentioned would be super. I think everybody would be in favor of that one.
Right. I believe what we talked about was not so much a bike path, but a lane.
Yeah. I understand.
Okay,
yeah.
Very good. And I know they've been talking about those telephone poles and the sidewalks, and you start pulling on the proverbial piece of yarn. But let's have a look at what we've already done, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so I'll dial in then in a
Yeah, we'll
month.
keep you put right for the next meeting in September.
All righty. Well, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
That's great.
Hey, Art, could we get to include with this, looking into this, the crash data for that street to see what kind of accidents have taken place in the past?
Mr. Burns, is that something you could incorporate to when you're digging stuff up?
Yeah, I can take a look at a crash map and share that with everyone, see what the safety is.
Thank you.
Side swipes and things like this, I'm sure have occurred along that corridor.
Yeah, I think the near miss data on pedestrians, it isn't really in there, but people are rather scared. I will tell you that.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so much.
And next we have a review to request a curb cut at 34 Easton Street, and I will turn it over to Mr. Burns. If you have questions, I could maybe try to address them, but I possibly will just stay out of it.
Sounds good. The letter and the supporting materials seem pretty straightforward. The plan looks like it has all the dimensions and everything we would want to look for on a request like this. It's removing one on-street parking space on Easton Street, provision of 2 off-street spaces. So this is within the realm of our guidance on considering these requests. Is there anyone from the public to speak on this other than Mr. Casparo? Hearing none. Any questions from the work group or a motion?
I got does this property have an existing driveway?
It did not.
Did not. Wow. Okay. I'll move approval.
Got a question about this. When you look at the dimensions on the street that's left over, once you take out the center space, it's 26 feet on one side and 32 feet on the other. If we were to slide or the applicant could slide the access apron toward, to the west, I guess, and reduce the one side to 20 feet, that might actually allow 2 spaces on the other side. Is that possible?
For the applicant, at the Gasparo, I think the issue would be that you wouldn't be able to get out of the spaces on the site if you were to do that. Because you have to back out once you pull in, and if you shift it, I don't think you'll be able to get out of that other space.
Yeah, Mickey, I think that compromises the aisle for the turning movement. I was kind of thinking through the same kind of issues. So if that's not possible, there's a motion. Is there still is there a second on the motion to approve? Can the chair second this to speed things along? Because I will. Motion seconded by the chair. We'll go to a vote. Mr. Rowland,
Aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Ms. Sylvia,
Aye.
Vice Chair votes aye, and Mr. Chair, the meeting is yours.
Thank you. With that, we'd move on to other business for topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Did anybody have anything to add? Mr. Sylvia.
I know Erica, you and me were talking about this, about the postal spots on North Union Street, the
Right.
reserve spots. I went by there yesterday. There were postal vehicles there. So I'm assuming they are still using them, but Erica said she was going to go talk to the postmaster, and I'm just not sure what came of that. That's all. I know this is probably for future, but.
Right, same. Just to bring the work group up to speed, we received some information in an email regarding the parking spaces across from the gas light next to the post office. I did the same thing yesterday and saw the post that perhaps they weren't being used by the post office, and there may be some abuse of those spaces and to have a look at it. But I saw postal trucks there yesterday afternoon, so I think we leave it to town administration perhaps to look into a little bit further, and we could have it as a future agenda item if it warrants discussion or revisiting the designation of those spaces. And then is there any other items?
I would, we talked about putting it on the agenda for this month, but for next month, and I did know if Chief Pittman, you had guidance on the bicycle right of way at intersections. We've had some requests for moving stop signs for along the bike paths, and I know there's a new town bylaw for giving right of way to bicyclists. I just didn't know how that was being handled, and I don't have a good way to kind of address that issue.
What I've seen this summer is nothing short of a disaster when it comes to bikes on bike paths. So, you know, how we don't have a pile of bodies laying around, I don't know. You know, if there's an intersection, there needs to be stop signs. If there's, you know, private road or private driveway, that's a different story. That's, you know, there's already a law that you have to be cautious. You have to yield coming out of a private driveway. But a good example of where it's just a matter of when somebody gets killed here. It's not a matter of if they're going to be, is Bluebird and South Shore Road. There's 2 stop signs there. There's one before you get to the bike path, and then, you know, 12 feet later, there's another one before you pull on the South Shore Road. But because of the way that brush is along that road, even if you stop at the first stop sign, you can't see but maybe 30 feet down the bike path. And the bikes on the bike paths today are going 30 miles an hour, and they're on top of you. And I bet once a week, I almost personally have a near collision with a bicycle on that road, just inching out, trying to see around it. And there's many others all around the island that are constant, you know, same way. So I don't know what the answer is, but I don't advocate. I think we should put more stop signs up rather than taking stop signs down, but that's my personal opinion.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that we have this as a topic for our next meeting, if that's all right.
Yeah, and I think I would add, I will ask Erica, I'm wondering, and I don't want to go too off topic on a subject that's not, but on the agenda, but you know, if we really need an opinion, if the town manager was willing from town council with respect to you know, the conflicts of the bylaw, you know, and whether that, you know, what's the situation there with that bylaw and state law, and how we have things. I feel like you're starting to get into a legal issue there a bit more, you know, from a traffic safety perspective. Our, you know, would be along the lines of what Chief Pittman suggested, that we need these signs, and then you have this bylaw. How does that play together? So I can certainly run that up the flagpole in advance with Erica in advance of the next meeting, and see how town administration maybe feels about that. And we can have it as an agenda item to try to look at, I guess, general discussion related to stop controls at intersections with bicycle paths.
I think that's perfect. Thank you. And if it's okay, Mr. Chair, one other topic, the Nobody Farm Road at Milestone Road intersection, controlling that intersection, or at least having some control, either the petition, or if there's officer control at that intersection that's ongoing right now. Again, I'd probably yield to the police chief to see if that's something that's happening, existing
Where was that,
operation,
Mike?
or if there's officer control at that intersection right now.
Yeah, what was the intersection? I didn't hear you.
Nobody Farm Road at Milestone Road.
No, there's nothing there.
Okay.
It's just yesterday it was backed up all the way from Milestone all the way up to Old South.
I've seen that several times this summer.
Everything's backed up. I mean, if you go up to Surfside and Fairgrounds, it's backed up all the way to the boulevard. If you go, and it's because, you know, there's so much traffic in that area of the island trying to get in and out of it. they go in every direction but down Milestone or down to the Rotary. And, I don't know any way around it at this point.
Right.
You can put in a roundabout and it's just gonna move where the backup is down further down Milestone.
Mr. Chair, is this intersection warrant adding to the agenda for next month for discussion?
I don't know if it really does. I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I wonder if, it's really already risen to the level of NPDC and traffic and transportation planning. So I don't know what else we really would have to say there or do if there's a current, planning initiative through economic planning and economic development, and it's in the long range plan. What else there really is that we to do about it personally.
Okay.
I'm not
Okay,
opposed, but if I don't know what there is really that, to else to talk about there.
Okay. Well, other than officer control of the traffic, I think that would be the only thing, but if that's not something that's really on the table, then I guess it's moot. And you're right, it is something I'm working with the Mass DOT on advancing that project through, and leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I had one thing and that slipped my mind. I'm sorry. I should have written it down. With that, does anybody else have any other suggestions for future agenda items? And with that, would move on to approval of the minutes from July 20th. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Burns, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia?
Aye.
Chief Pittman?
Aye.
Mr. Rowland?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Motion to adjourn.
So
Motion.
moved.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia?
Aye.
Chief Pittman?
Aye.
Mr. Rowland?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Have a good day.
You.
Thank you all.